Port of Tallinn IPO, my first question was why I'm being asked to present here, but then I got it. Public-private partnership is not only financing a project, it can be also owning a company together, the state and the private investors, for example. So I will be sharing with you my experience or our experience running the biggest IPO this year for the Baltics involving an infrastructure company. A little bit of introduction of what is a Port of Tallinn. We are currently 67% state-owned, but before the IPO, we were 100% state-owned. We are not only a port operator or landlord port, meaning we own several ports, but we also run a domestic ferry service, which is kind of a highway extension connecting the Estonian mainland and two of Estonia's bigger islands, and we also own an icebreaker. So we are a little bit more diverse infrastructure company than just a port. This is the legal structure. The parent company, AS Tallinna Sadam, is the one listed. We have two other companies which are then taking care of the ferry service and icebreaking. The parent company is the one operating in the port business. Just so you can visualize, it's not only one port that we operate. We operate 4 different ports. Then we have this link between the mainland and the islands, the ferry service, and then, of course, icebreaker for the winter times. So we are pretty diverse, and also the business fields that we have from this, we have 4 main areas. It's passenger operations, mainly in the capital of Estonia, in Tallinn. We have 1 passenger port, handles 10.6 million passengers. We are number 4 in Europe in terms of number of passengers. So that's really remarkable for the size of countries such as Estonia, having a little bit more than 1 million people in the country. We service 10.6 million passengers per year. Last year we had 19 million tons of cargo, so we also operate 2 cargo harbors. Then we have the shipping business. We operate 5 ferries which connect to our bigger islands, Saaremaa and Hiiumaa. There we service also 1 million passengers, 1 million vehicles per year. These are also very, very big numbers. And then, last but not least, being a landlord means we have land, so we also develop a little bit of real estate. And lastly, or lately, the most discussion has been around the old city port, which is in the center of Tallinn, where we are also having some free land areas, and we are preparing for a real estate development there, so to have a port business and the real estate together, as it's quite a prime location. Just a little bit on the flows, passenger flows and cargo volume. The pink one is the passenger number. As you may see, we have had 10 years of consecutive growth. This has been really, really nicely growing business. We hope to have growth also this year, continuing. The cargo business, which used to be the dominant business for us, has been in decline due to the relocation or reallocation of Russian transit mainly. So now we have more than half of Estonian export imports, maybe 30% of our cargo volumes are still Russian transit, 20% other countries, such as Scandinavian countries, for example. So we have a quite good, balanced business. And here on financial terms, you can also see on the right-hand side the contribution of each business. So the passenger harbors and the passenger servicing business has become the biggest contributor over time. Historically, we used to be very much a cargo harbor. Maybe one of the challenges for us in this IPO process was also to change the perception of us being just a Russian transit port. We were very strongly connected or associated with Russian transit volumes, which is actually not the case because, or not the case anymore, because passenger traffic actually is a bigger contributor than the cargo is. And then, of course, the big one is the ferry business that we started in at the end of 2016, which is also a quite a sizable. So we have clearly 3 pillars on which to stand for. Eggs in different baskets, you can say. Also a little bit of how we perform. You can see on the right-hand side on the financial position, this light green. This is the amount of assets or tangible assets that we have. We are clearly infrastructure company, meaning we own, and our balance sheet is largely made of fixed assets, land, quays, roads, railways. Also, we own the ferries that we operate. So we are an infrastructure provider. And on the left-hand side, you can see our revenues and EBITDA and profit. We have always been profitable. We are established as a ordinary business entity. We have been owned by the state, but clearly for us as a company, there has been a business focus. So we need to generate the profit and have generated for years and years already. And how the state has benefited from us and owning us has been the dividends. So we have been for 10 years a regular dividend payer. In average, we have paid 28 million per year of dividend to the state. So that structure and the way of thinking of an infrastructure company as a profitable organization is why the government decided that due to different reasons, we are a good candidate for having an IPO. Before I come to the specific reasons behind having the IPO, just maybe one procedural slide here. If someone is thinking about an IPO, in our case, it was more clearly a privatization. The state sold the existing ownership, or 1/3, but an IPO can be used to finance investments as well. In our case, it was not the goal to finance investments because we just at the moment do not happen to have any major investments. So if anyone is thinking about an IPO, then of course those are maybe the takeaways from the process for us. You need to think about the positioning of the company. Is it the growth? Is it the dividend? In our case, clearly a dividend case. The legal framework, especially important for state-owned companies. Does the regulation allow to do an IPO? And actually, what we needed to do was to change one law during this process. This can take time, depending on how quick the government is and how supportive they are. Of course, the selection of advisors and partners is something that you need to think about. Procurement, also important for state-owned companies. In this process, can you just have a direct competition? Do you need a public procurement process to be held? Those things are important, not only because to select the right partner, but because you need to bear in mind the time that it may take. Cost and budgeting, just be aware that no matter how exact you are in trying to foresee everything that will come, you will not see everything. There will be surprises. Be prepared for that. A little bit cost overruns before over what you initially anticipate. Timing of the IPO, in our case, was a little bit more than half a year. Of course, depending on the different factors, what you need to do, probably between half a year, 1 year, is the time that it takes. And I'm not talking about just starting to think about it, but actually starting to do things in order to get listed. So from the moment you actually start really preparing, I think 6 months is quite an optimal time. And of course, you need to plan the human resources to pull this off. It's a very intense project, and you need to have people within the organization that can contribute to this. I have been asked what's the life before the IPO and after the IPO. I can say so much that this 6 months, that's clearly a sprint that you need to do. So it's, and after that you have a marathon. It's being a public company is something you will always be. You will always have some reporting and things like that. But this is nothing to compare in terms of time it takes to handle with the listing process itself and preparation for the listing process. That's quite heavy. For the state of Estonia, the objectives of the IPO, as I said, it was not to finance investments, but it was to provide investment opportunities because the public has a lot of money. The people have a lot of money, earning nothing in the bank accounts. So clearly one objective was to provide investment opportunities and a good dividend play for the private investors. But not only the private investors, also Estonian pension funds. What the problem is, the pension funds, they don't have enough high-quality assets domestically to invest in. So majority of the funds that the pension funds have are invested abroad. And this is something that the government wanted to not change. You don't change this with one opportunity, but to set an example that the private investors could follow and to show that, yes, we are doing also something so that the pension funds will not be only invested abroad, but can be invested in the economy of Estonia. To kick up activity in the capital and stock market, of course, and while doing this, what's the beauty of just trading between the Estonians? So to get international investors into Estonia as well, because no matter what we think or how famous we think we are, the capital markets in Scandinavia, in England, for example, in Western Europe, they don't know much about us because they don't have enough investment opportunities here. So they don't have experience. And this means there is always a margin of the unexpected or unknown, no matter what we do. Is it lending or debt financing? Is it equity financing? The more you have people in the Baltics, doing business in the Baltics, actually investing in the Baltics, the cheaper it is to finance the investments as well, and the cheaper the capital is. And the fourth item, of course, to further increase the efficiency and transparency of the company to become public. So how we did? Clear targets were set. We wanted to have at least 2 pension funds to invest. We got 3, plus 3 Estonian private investment funds to invest into the Port of Tallinn with 25 different accounts. We had a target of at least 6,000 Estonian retail investors. We managed to get twice or more than twice that much. We wanted to be in top 1 of Nasdaq Tallinn or top 3. So we are actually, depends on what you value, but in terms of turnover, we have been number 1. In terms of value, in Tallinn, we have been number 2. Tallink is the biggest one. In Baltics, we are currently the 4th biggest company listed. And of course, number 4, the turnover. So far, in 3 months, we have generated half of the trading volume in Tallinn Stock Exchange and 39% of the Baltic. It's not because Port of Tallinn is so big, it's rather because there are not so many companies, and even if there are companies, there is very little trading taking place, and this can only change with new companies coming, and infrastructure companies are a very good candidate for that. This is our current shareholding structure. The state is still 67% owner. They have the majority. The pink one there is international investors, then 9% Estonian retail, and 6% Estonian investment and pension funds. So quite a good mix, maybe a little bit, I personally had a little bit higher expectations for the pension funds in terms of actually investing their money. Some of them said that, I don't know if it's good to be a shareholder with the state, because we never know where they are putting the emphasis on, and are they for generation of profits or just developing the economy. So there is a little bit maybe or a little bit afraid, some of the investors, whether the state is a good partner or not, but this can only be proven with experience. And maybe one of the greatest things that we have is we have, due to this international investor base, even though it's not the majority of the company, a lot of people have invested their own money into us. This is free publicity. This is more than 13,000 people thinking about ways how we can be better. And the international investors especially, we have had meetings with them. We are not the only one they are investing. So there are ideas such as, oh, okay, I have this other investment in this shipping line. Do they come to your port? I need to check that. Maybe we can work together here. So as I started and said that we are not so well known in the international capital markets. And having all those shareholders, it's just a way to make them more familiar with the Baltics, with our possibilities. And as we have had quite a successful story here, we already get inquiries that are there new companies going to be listed? Because now they have found a way here, and it would be good to keep them here. And so, as a final takeaway to whoever is thinking about doing an IPO, I can tell you this. During the process, it seems like you always run out of time, but that's normal. That's okay. Everything still gets done. So don't worry about it and be brave. Thank you.